Ultra Vegito Blue. One of the greatest units of all time, if not the greatest unit of all time, and to this day still being used more than units that came out not even a couple months ago. How is that even possible? Okay, my name's Zakashi, guys, and in this video here I had to pull out the glaze video. If you guys don't know, Ultra Vegito Blue is my favorite unit in Dragon Ball Legends, but not just that, one of the most menacing and most powerful units in existence, especially as an individual unit. Complete one-man army, danger to the PvP battlefield against the likes of Satan's greatest soldier.
I was relieved for the community, man, because he was over there torturing them guys, man. I ain't gonna lie to you, man.
Go Frieza outlived him for very good reason. But I'm pulling out this video because recently in the top 20 PvP list, for some reason Ultra Vegito Blue is still there. Now granted, this list is based on usage, so it doesn't necessarily mean he's actually that good or better than characters that he's above or similar to characters that he's near. But it's not just usage, it's usage for players that are only above BR 70. So that means it's the likes of those guys that play PvP religiously and somewhat seriously. If he wasn't good, no way BR 70 players would be using him. But of course, it should be objectively known he's a popular character. So let's dive into him. What has allowed him to last over a year? This is the 5th anniversary Ultra. We are in December 2024. Ultra Vegito Blue pushing 2025. What's going on here? Well, we gotta talk about what makes him so good. Let's get into this. So the first thing we're going to do is dive into his kit. You might need a refresher, and it's very important that you know all the things that he does, even the niche parts. But I'm not going to mention everything, just the core parts. Right, so let's start with his main ability. 3 things I want to point out here. 1, he draws the ultimate art. We already know the ultimate art has the tap art action that Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta also recently got. They're the only 2 characters with it in the game, but we're going to focus on that more later. The main 2 things in his main ability I want you guys to focus on is the fact that he cancels own attribute downgrades and abnormal conditions. So like I mentioned earlier, he's God's greatest soldier, and he's gonna wipe away all the disgust. True God Key Warrior, all those debuffs wiped to make sure that his next attack is gonna be max power. And then on top of that, he makes sure that the enemy is going to be a lot weaker. Minus 50% to enemy sustained damage cut to self for 15 timer counts. So you know the next attack is gonna hit different. For the first 60 timer counts of the battle, he's unable to get his Dragon Balls reduced. And this is very important because it ties into the fact that when he rising rushes, he's able to nullify endurance, go type neutral, and obtain a Dragon Ball. So his ability to early game rush is out of this world. I'm sure we're all accustomed to him also being a combo machine, him being melee orientated. When he enters the battlefield, he draws a strike arts next, but tying that in with his gauge, every time his gauge fills, he draws a strike arts as well and also gets a 30% damage inflicted increase. But to make him even better, every time he enters the battlefield, he gets cover nullification for 5 timer counts, and he'll also get cover nullification every single time his gauge fills. One of the biggest things about him, for the first time he switches into the battlefield, his presence will reduce the enemy's vanishing gauge to 0 immediately, which means that it leaves them wide open. Just entering the battlefield, he can guarantee you a free combo. But with that as well, he seals your rising rush off entry, so it leaves him protected from the biggest attack in the game. The vanishing gauge is only once, but the rising rush being sealed is every time. One of the biggest things today, because of Ultra Margin Vegeta, every time he's faced with an enemy, so not just when he enters the battlefield, but even if the enemy cover changes, their blue cards will be sealed for 3 timer counts, which means that if you activate Ultra Margin Vegeta's counter intentionally, he won't be able to press his blue card, but even if he could, UVB is red, which makes him valuable in that scenario. Something small, but on the defensive end, when his health goes below 50%, he's gonna gain 30%, get a Dragon Ball, so in the scenario you sell early game, you can work towards that rush faster, but he will also go type neutral defensively for 30 timer counts. And also another one of the biggest things, every time he takes out an enemy, he gets his vanishing gauge to 100%. So for every body he takes, he gets another chance to disappear. And that also increases the morale of your allies. So he's gonna give your allies 10% health for him catching a body. Now, out of his arts cards, there's only 2 things I want to talk about. His green card, the versatile counter, and it's exactly as it's called. It can counter pretty much everything except blue cards and ultimate arts, of course rising rushes, and awakened arts, which nobody uses. But when he lands it, he's gonna heal, go type neutral, which cannot be cancelled by the way, seal kill the enemy's Rising Rush, and for the first time that it happens, he's gonna draw a blue card, which is guaranteed to hit. With the uncancelable type neutral, the damage is gonna be berserk. But not just that, if you had your ultimate in your hand already, you can chain that too. And then regarding his ultimate, we already know the art action already does insane amount of damage, and it's depending on how many times you tap, which is very easy to do. The damage gets increased, which makes him an insane sniper, and it will destroy all of your enemy cards. That's all of his kit, but if I had to point out the main factors for him, it'd be the Vanish Restore when he catches a body, the Vanish Removal when he first enters the battlefield, the easy cover nullification while drawing a bunch of cards, the sealing, so the Rising Rush and the blue card seals, and then his green card and ultimate. All of those together literally carry his kit. Now that you know what he does, if you needed the refresher, we gotta get into how he survived this long. So we gotta go back to where it started. 2023 Legends Anniversary, the 5th one. He released as the Ultra, so the last unit to release for that anniversary, while already in the midst of Universe Rep dominating the game. We had Legends Limited MVP 17 and Gold Freezer as the biggest antagonist to his spotlight during that anniversary. Now it should be no contest as an individual unit, this guy was insane. But it should also be no debate that if you mention Gold Freezer in the conversation, when it came to teams, Gold Freezer was ultimately the best unit in the game. Running Universe Rep was a free win type of team, and if he was even more diabolical, you'd put them both together. But with those two characters being blue, Ultra VEGITO Blue had to rely on his green card and high damage power to even break through, and even doing all of that, MVP 17, we know he can cancel hella buffs. So it wasn't the easiest, but even during his release, he was pre-countered, but he still pushed through. Now we have him going forward all the way up until the festival, and we know that Ultra Super Janemba released. Now people would like to claim that Ultra Super Janemba killed him off, and what I will say is, for those 2-3 weeks, Ultra Super Janemba was reigning terror. The value in Pycon wasn't seen at that time, and up until the festival started with Evoken, Janemba had about 4 weeks of shine, and that shine, he was easily at the top of the game. That should be pretty obvious and self-explanatory, but being countered for a short period of time doesn't mean you're killed off, which is currently what Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is going through. People like to say he's completely dead, but the odds are he's going to live longer than all of these units countering him.
Maybe not though. Ultra Major Vegeta is crazy though. But Triku and the rest of them confusing Gogeta Blue.
Just like I laughed at some of those yellows, we had the same situation. MVP 17 off the map. The blue Super Saiyan Goku completely dead. Bardock and Goku, they got a plat but barely anywhere to be seen. Even Bomku dropped at the start of this year, wasted. With all these blues releasing, none of them could match the longevity that Ultra VEGITO Blue is displaying. I'm not saying he's a top 10 unit or anything, but longevity is something to be praised about, and UVB is easily at the top of that list when it comes to longevity, but not just longevity, the value you bring out while being good. There's even insane characters that are still probably good right now, but have just come and gone. Legends Limited Zenkai Kid Buu, he was at the peak of his career during the anniversary, the 6th anniversary this year, but once Majin Buu Saga got a few upgrades, people packed him up. He's not being used anymore. With all of this information, I've boiled it down to pretty much 2 reasons as to why Ultra VEGITO Blue has managed to maintain this longevity. People don't seem to want to let go of him, and there's big reasons for this, but these 2 are easily the main ones. So the first one I'm going to start with, which should be the very obvious answer, but I'm going to break it down to the T. It's his popularity factor. Now, before you just go ahead and jump the gun like,
wow, I couldn't have guessed that.
Let me ask you this. Why isn't Ultra Gogeta Blue at the same standard? Why isn't Ultra Super Vegito at the same standard? What about Goku Black Rose? Even the likes of Red Beast Gohan. He's not top 20 in usage anymore. I can show you the whole list right now. And trust me, Red Beast is probably the closest character to a kit like Ultra VEGITO Blues. I might even say his kit is better. So there's more reason for him to be used on top of popularity. Well, let's break it down. Him being popular is just one part of the cake. His popularity stems from him being a fusion warrior, a fusion of the protagonist and the deuteragonist, Goku and Vegeta, and they also brought him back after many years. His first appearance was in Z, where he came as Super Vegito, and they brought him back in the DBS Future arc against the likes of Zamasu, and immediately transformed into VEGITO Blue, not displaying any other forms. The next slice of the cake for his popularity is the fact that he released at the 5th anniversary of Dragon Ball Legends. I think 5 is a very good number. It's a clean number. After 5 years, it's almost like a milestone. You got 5, 10, maybe 15, you might want to skip to 20. But not just that, I think the presentation of how they revealed him with the orchestra and the drone show was really something out of the norm. They raised the bar, and that pushed people to liking him so much, leaving a good taste at the end of that anniversary. anniversary. But the last thing that pushes his popularity is in regards to the way the Dragon Ball Super arc went. For the last couple years, since the Dragon Ball Super Future arc ended, people always say Sword of Hope Trunks was terrible, the way it finished wasn't good. They felt it was a lot of plot armor, they didn't like the way his sword glowed blue, the form that he used came out of nowhere. There was all of these points raised against Trunks for how the arc ended. And honestly, I'm sure a lot of people didn't like that Vegito Blue defused at the moment he was just about to beat Zamasu. So in a sense, I think people like to show their allegiance towards Vegito because he was so much stronger than Zamasu, but he was unable to finish the job due to the Pataras being brought by the Kais not being strong enough to hold their immense power.
I can't believe the Kais be shopping on Temu, bro. Oh my god. Let's just hope Vegito gets something in Diamond, bruh.
With those three reasons, his popularity just being Vegito, the way he was presented in the 5th anniversary, and people's feelings towards the arc in general, it's allowed him to be able to thrive in-game. Now the second reason, which should be quite a no-brainer, is the value in his kit. But not just his kit being good, because there's been a lot of units kits that are good, and those characters will still fade away. For Vegito Blue, I think it's the fact that he's autopilot. Now there are a lot of units that could be classed as autopilot, but I think Vegito Blue is at the highest degree of autopilot. If he had protection, he would easily be a top 10 unit in this game. To this day.
Is that a hot take? He would have been ahead of his time though, as if he already wasn't.
Now to elaborate on what makes him autopilot, here are some factors that I've got. The cover nullification, it's easily accessible. The potential in his combos, he draws cards way too easily too. And then 3, he has a bunch of gimmicks. Removal of the enemy's vanishing gauge on entry. Only the first time, but that's enough to catch him a body. His ultimate being so powerful, the art action really just steps it up a notch. I've found in some cases, I'm able to nuke just as well with him as G4 in December 2024, gaining 100% vanish when he catches a body. You don't even need teammates at this point, especially when it's so easy to catch a body with this guy. His green card, why is he countering everything except blue's ultimate to grab greens? You can't even send a tap shot against this guy. He's catching it. And I'll end it with his rising rush potential. Just farming a rush without being disturbed, he's gonna get you, bro. Now with all this glaze, he's one of the cheesiest units at the same time. And this is a scenario I'm sure a lot of people have run, and I've done this so many times. If I could get paid to do this, I'd be a billionaire. But essentially, with UVB, you don't want to switch him in until you get ultimate up. The reason this is because his ultimate can easily one-shot, especially with the Zenkai buffs that can be applied to him. So for the first 20 time accounts, until you get your ultimate up through your main ability, you simply don't want to switch him in, which means that you'd be playing 2v3, which is not impossible, especially with the characters available in this game. The likes of Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta with his counter, Gotenks with his endurance, or any other strong unit you like. Depending on how you want to build the team, that's down to you. The minute 20 time accounts come up, you just want to vanish step one of his strike arts, because you know when you're in a strike arts animation, all you can do is sidestep after a few intervals. So what you want to do is vanish using somebody else, switch into Ultra Vegito Blue, and at that point you remove their vanish because it's the first time you've used them. Hit your main ability and then hit our ultimate. That ultimate will very likely kill anybody. Obviously if it's a blue, you shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. Granted, there are a lot of characters that cancel buffs right now, but it is pretty easy to pull off. At that point, you're immediately at a 3v2 standpoint when you started the game in somewhat a 2v3 standpoint. You've completely flipped the tables. With this as well, you've probably got your Rising Rush and you've got 2 other characters that are also powerful, which makes it easy to pull off the win for the game. And it's completely a rinse and repeat. Even if you manage to mess it up, once you do catch the body after switching into him, if you didn't have a vanish, you get your vanish back and you can continue playing. And him also being a last stand unit, it puts you in the position to easily make a comeback, especially being guarded by the green card that the enemy has to anticipate. I don't know about you guys, but I think being put in a position where you can't escape at all is really sucky. We've seen this with the infinite combos recently, but that's just what UVB came with and will still have for pretty much forever. I wonder how long it will take for him to be completely irrelevant. Now with all of this glaze, I don't think this unit is perfect. Obviously he's not built for the current times because he doesn't have any survivability or potential to cancel buffs, and on top of that, a lot of his buffs can completely get cancelled, specifically the likes of him nullifying endurance. Because of how quality his kit is, I do not see him getting a plat anytime soon. There should be no buffs coming his way unless they're indirect, for example them buffing Future. Then it would be Future as a tag coming up and he just reaps the benefit of that just like any other Future unit. But I genuinely feel like he will be one of the last units to see any type of platinum equipment as an Ultra. And that's simply because even with him not being perfect, he's still able to keep up. Yes, you might have to Zenkai buff him, but I don't like the Zenkai buff argument to downplay a character, because that same argument will be used to uplift the character that you want to pin against Vegito Blue.
Yeah, you go Frieza fans, you are not nothing. You're absolutely...
Throughout this video, I've sprinkled a bit of bias just to irritate some people through all the facts that I'm spitting. But honestly, this unit's existence isn't really a good thing. But the meta at that time is even worse. So there's too many problems to really address. I'm just here to support my favorite character. But in doing that, I won't do that blindly. I just might slide some humor here and there just to irritate some of the guys that wish this guy never existed. But regardless of if you hate him or love him, the hate will only show that he was one of the better units in his time and he's aging wonderfully. And if you love him, you already know the game, man. You're on the right side of the wall. But yeah, man, that's going to be it for this video. The end of my VEGITO Blue essay video. I use this guy so many times in a year, mainly only when his Ultra Banner reruns, and that's because I know people be wanting to see if he can still keep up. Knowing his popularity, it does well. But I would never turn down an opportunity to use him anyways. He's my favorite character. Even with the release of the new Legends Limited VEGITO Blue, that guy just doesn't top it for me. Ultra VEGITO Blue has some flair that just can't be replicated. Prior to him, if you're wondering who was my favorite character, Legends Limited VEGITO Blue. And you might want to know, Zach, why is VEGITO Blue your favorite character? Well, if you must know, when I was watching Dragon Ball Super, I was behind on the anime, so I was binging it. When I was binging it, the anime was already on UI versus Kefla, and I didn't know that VEGITO Blue was coming back. So as watching it, I was sitting down just relaxed, and then I'm like, yo, they're gonna fuse again? They brought it back? I was like, no way. And for the first time in a couple years, maybe ever actually, watching an anime, I stood up. I didn't even realize I was standing. That's how he pulled me in, and I locked in since then. Twin. It can be a moment as simple as that does it for you. You don't need any spectacular explanation. It was just the hype factor that pulled me in. Not to say that other fusions aren't hype, and I have my reasons for liking them. And just so you guys know, as a VEGITO fan, it doesn't mean that I have to put down Gogeta.
I might sometimes just for comedic purposes though.
But ultimately, that's why VEGITO Blue is my favorite character. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, man. If you haven't already, make sure to press that subscribe button. We're on this grind to 200,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys for watching, man. My name's Zakashi, guys, and I will see you guys in the next one, man.